Hello everyone, thank you for attending this lecture. The other time we were looking of the information literature, where we define the information literature, and we have given like some other types. Under that we have looked at the plagiarism, and we have tackled something on information sources. As in the previous video, we looked at the primary sources of information, where we talked on it, that it is the first-hand evidence. It is the first-hand evidence of an event. So in this video mainly we are going to handle the secondary sources of information, and then the last type of information sources, that is tertiary source of information. Now when we talk of the secondary source of information, the secondary source of information is that type of information or a source of information which interprets, analyzes and summarizes the primary information, or it summarizes the primary information gotten from the primary source, or a raw fact, or a first-hand information, analyzing a first-hand information. That is what we call the secondary sources of information. They explain or derive on the primary or event that is represented. Now, what are the sum of the characters of secondary sources? We have the what? We have the interpretation. They are interpretative. Secondary sources involve some level of analysis. They also synthesize, they build up, or the evolution of the primary sources. After getting your first-hand information, you first go and interrogate more, or find more information about what you have studied. That is secondary sources. Now after being verified and documented, that document is now called secondary source of information. Now the second character, they have evaluative. That is one example of, or one character of secondary sources. They are evaluative in a way that they offer opinions or assessment based on an evidence that may be brought out by the primary sources. Secondary sources, they summarize this information often to explain a concept in the primary sources of information. That is basically the secondary source of information. Now what are those examples of secondary source of information? The examples include, we have the historical book, the books. Historical book analyzes a specific historical periods. For example, a book which may be discussing on a war in northern Uganda might be written by one of us, or it might be written by one of the publishers and published. This is a primary source. Now, when that information is analyzed historically and documented, that document is now what we refer to as a secondary sources of information. Not only historical book, we have journal articles. Journal articles, it critiques or analyzes primary data, such as a research paper analyzing the results of a scientific experiment. Like for in case like the other one which happened in 2020, like the one Professor Ogban did a research on the disease called corona. So after making all those, the primary sources of information we have gotten from Ogban, what he used, the material he mixed. Now when people come up, the scientists are now coming up to build up those primary sources so that they come up with a more critical information about that thing. So that is one example of secondary sources of information. Not only that, we can look at it in documentaries, a pile up academic written documents, or a pile up academic writings which are stored and are being kept for researches. So they are easy and reviews, critical essays that provide analysis of an ethical work or historical event, often building up primary texts. So those are the movies or the books that interpret the content of a work. So what we call a secondary source of information. Now what are those purposes? What are the purposes of what? Of a secondary source of information. First of all, it is contextualization. Contextualization means secondary sources provide the necessary context for primary data. They synthesize information to offer a wider understanding of a particular idea. That is how secondary sources of information are very important. The second one is interpretation and analysis. Interpretation of an analysis is, by that we mean like assuming you've been given like something, we interpret, analyze what the primary information is talking about. Now they help researchers make sense of primary material by providing expert commentary or comparative analysis. Therefore, first compare, is this information really correct? How is it going to affect? What should we include so that that effect may not happen? So those are the analyzation questions they may ask themselves when they are like making a secondary source of information. So those are some of the very many purposes of secondary information. The last that I'm going to give you is the broader understanding. Secondary sources help situate specific events or pieces of data with larger societal, cultural, or historical frameworks, providing a fuller picture of the events. So those are some few purposes of secondary sources of information. Not only the secondary information that are important, there are also some other purposes of primary source of information. Like for example, there are raw evidence, provide raw evidence, unfiltered and mediated access to past or present, providing a first-hand occurrence of an event. It also helps research foundations, surface a cornerstone of original research, where a scholar can get direct information to analyze. Like you will be given some other research that you carry out a research on this topic. So you will first go, the first information you are going to take is what? Set that topic you are giving. So that is what That is a research foundation. That is a primary source of information from the lecturers or from the professors. So it has acted as a foundation of your research. Giving you question is a foundation. Not only foundation, we have also insight in content. Insight into content, they allow researchers to understand event figures and phenomena from the different perspectives of those who lived them. We have also direct connections. The primary sources, like for historical research, primary sources connect directly with the events or figures under investigation, making them the individual in covering the fact of a specific time or places. So those are some of the purposes of primary rationalizations. Primary source of information. Now from there, let us dive into a tertiary information. Tertiary sources of information. The tertiary source of information summarizes, compiles, summarizes, and provide general understanding of both primary and secondary sources of information. They are very, very important, but from there you can draw a conclusion from there. That is what the secondary and the tertiary information is all about. So in conclusion, primary sources are essential for obtaining direct and immediate event from the time or period phenomenon is being studied. They provide the foundation of data or account needed to review theories. And secondary sources, on the other hand, interpret and analyze these primary sources, offering a broader context, a critique or a synthesis of information. Both types of sources are indispensable for a robust and nuanced understanding of any topics and research topic. Use them and tend them to find out, to come out, to build the information, the required information about them. So thank you for watching, members. Let us meet in the next video. And in the next video, we're going to add more on how we can present this thing. After doing the researches, after finding the sources of information, how are we going to present it? That is such strategies. So how we can cite, that is citation. It's one way of avoiding also plagiarism. Thank you for watching and God bless you. Don't forget to like and subscribe or drop your comment in the link. Thank you.